Hey guys, I wanted to make a quick video going over the split function on Power Automate. I use this function in most of my automations and it's a pretty good one and a handy one to know. So the split function is a function which allows us to split a string of text and separate the text into an array. For example, if you had a list of fruits separated by a comma, what we can do is use split to separate these fruits individually and store the individual values into an array which can be accessed by using a apply to each loop. There's also multiple delimiters we can choose from. We aren't just tied to using commas. For example, we can use spaces to separate a customer's full name, or use a dash to separate a date of birth. So we've got quite a few options with it. So I'll just show this in practice. So what I'm going to do is create a new Cloudflow. It's going to be an instant Cloudflow with a manual trigger. Let's just call this split tutorial and click create. Right, the first thing we'll do is create a variable with our text we want to split. So let's name this full name and set the type to string and the value to John Smith. Right, following on from that, what we want to do is create a compose action, and then we want to go into the input section and find expressions. Here we can search for split, and as you can see here it tells us exactly what the function expects, which is two strings, text and a delimiter. So what we're going to do is pass in our variable inside the parameters and our delimiter. And our delimiter in this example is just a space between the first and last name. Then hit save and let's run a test and we'll see what happens. And as you can see, we have split the full name, which is now two strings inside an array. So if we want to say access these strings and store them into variables like first and surname, we can actually do that. So let's create two more variables. Let's just copy the full name variable twice and create two empty variables, first name and surname. And then let's set these two variables to the output of our split function. Because we know the order of our string, for example, first and then surname, and we know that arrays start from 0, we can just use the position of the array to set our variables. So let's just use a set variable action and point it towards the first name. Then let's go into our expressions tab and type brackets 0, which is the position of the first name in our array, and then go back into dynamic content and find our array and click OK. So what we'll do now is we'll just copy and paste this action and do the same for the surname. We can then save and run our flow. and as you can see, we have successfully separated the full name and stored it into a first and surname variable. Although this works fine, we won't always want to separate and store the data into variables. On some occasions, for example, if we have a distribution list, we will more than likely want to loop over the data and do something like send an email. So I'll just show you how to do that. It's a very similar concept to what we've been doing so far. Just now we'll use a apply to each loop to get the data. So instead of having first and surname, now we have a distribution list with customers' emails on, separated by a colon. So we do the exact same thing with the split function, the only difference being the delimiter is now a colon, not a space. So let's add a apply to each loop and set the output as the array. Then let's create a compose and point it to the current item in the apply to each loop, which will be our customer's email. And as you can see, it loops through all of our customers' emails, and if we wanted, we could individually do something with each of these customers, like send them an email or an update. So it's pretty straightforward. And that's all for today, guys. If you learned something, drop me a like and drop me a subscribe. Cheers, bye.